Awake by Design. This is their third release so far, self-titled album. As you can see by the album cover, it's just Awake by Design. And as I say, it's the third release. It released something like a month ago, which is quite annoying because I wanted to review this as soon as possible. But other things kind of got in the way of that. But this is a UK-based band, which is pretty cool because I live in the UK, so who knows what can happen with that, because I'm going to be quite close to these guys. And yeah, so this album came out just something like a month ago. They're based in the UK, it's their third album, it's the self-titled. Their type of genre I would probably call melodic metal. So I got into these quite recently as well. I kind of got into it through Spotify. There's a list on Spotify which is new released songs, and one of the tracks was on that from this album. Gave it a listen, thought it was pretty good, and then got in, heard a few kind of singles around that time with the music videos. Waited for the album to come out. When it leaked, I downloaded it. I even bought the album, so I actually have it right here in front of me, which goes to tell you that I like the album and I support the group. I actually got a bundle which came very well packaged. I would like to give props to the band because you have to buy it from them. It's in my currency finally. Usually I'm always buying from abroad. It's not on Amazon or something. But it comes in a real shiny purpley pink thing, and it's stuck down by a sticker of the album. I just thought it was quite nice instead of just a typical kind of thing they send. But yeah, I got the double, so I got the second CD as well. Haven't even heard that or unwrapped it yet because I've been focused on this as well as just everything else that keeps coming out and for me to keep on top of. But I don't like to just listen to something the once through and then just get a review out. I want to know something inside and out, really just get into it, have the nostalgia kind of die down, so I'm not just, you know, excited about something. I can just dissect it like a critic and not a fanboy or anything. So about time I got into review this, and as I said, this is the only album I've heard. I don't know what it's really come from, because I haven't heard the second one. I haven't even bothered to listen to any track from the second album, which I probably should have done. And yeah, I've just been a fan not that long. This album is what got me into them. So the album is 1 hour 17 minutes, I believe, which is absolutely fantastic. I love that the album is that length. And you've got a fair amount of tracks here. You got 13 tracks, and as I said, 1 hour 17 minutes, which really isn't bad. You get your money's worth and your time worth. It's not all these metal albums that come out and they're like 30 minutes. They'll even struggle to achieve that, which is quite ridiculous. So let's just get into the casual breakdown, because I'm trying to make my reviews shorter these days so they're not just a bloody hour a piece. So the first track is The Coming Tide. So good thing with this band is they don't usually do the typical metal thing where you have just chords happen. The intro is just going for something aggressive that maintains a beat, and it's just chunky, bass driven, aggressive, gritty. And that is all the guitars would really do until it gets to a solo where it tries to do something a bit more unique for themselves. And this band doesn't really do that, and you can get that with The Coming Tide, where the guitars are actually playing more of a kind of melody instead of just going for chord, power chords, chunky galloping riffs or anything. And the band always maintain this melody to them, a kind of lead tone, which is nice. The song's mid-tempo, where most of the tracks on this album are actually mid-tempo. It's got some warmth to the tone. It's very kind of bass driven, which is probably down to the fact that the bass seems to be 6 strings, which is a lot of bass, and then the guitars also go for 7 strings, which is one of the issues I have with the overall kind of tone, is it can get very bass heavy. There's no like highs or some nicer warmth, or some aspects lose articulation, which can be quite disappointing. And it loses kind of emotion and character when it's so bass driven. It's hard to kind of get a kind of tone going. When you put so much bass into something, tone starts to kind of die, so it gets quite difficult. So I think that's a problem, especially with this band, because they are very kind of melodically driven. So I do think they need to kind of bring the bass down a bit, so they can have more kind of tonal realms of melody instead of kind of lose it in the overused amount of bass. But getting back to the point, the band pretty much usually are always maintaining a melody through the songs. They never really just go for here's a chord. Every song is always playing melody, kind of lead thing, which is nice because it gives some songs some emotion, something you can kind of connect with emotionally, instead of something that's like emotionally dead. So you hear something but there's no emotion to connect to it. So I like the band do that. As for the vocalist, when he comes in, he is one of the key features of the band, definitely. The guitarists are fine. As I said, the only issue is just emphasis and overuse of bass. I would have liked more warm melody and more nicer tones coming out of them, but as I say, it's very difficult when you put so much bass in there, because the tone just kind of dies in the kind of thickness of what the bass drives out. The vocalist is definitely one of the leading points of this band. The vocalist is very, very warm, very light and very melodic. He always sings with a lot of emotion in his voice. So it's not like he's written something and he's gone into the studio and he's just reading lines. He feels each line, he emotes. It's all sung through emotion, which really helps drive his voice and vocal work. He's got a fair bit of range to him, some songs which require more power. He is capable of that. He has more lightness to him, and then warm, as I said, more kind of aggression and higher notes, vibrato in his voice in certain aspects. I think the singer is probably capable of more. I don't think this album is a full show of all his potential and talent. I do think that this singer can go above and beyond what he's laid out through this album. Not to say that I think it's very limiting, I just think the singer is so great that he is capable of much more. But as I said, throughout this whole album, the vocalist is pretty much on point. I really like this guy's voice. He is influenced by Iron Maiden. You can kind of tell in certain aspects, but this singer really does have his own identity, which is, as I said, that warmth and melody and just sheer emotion that he puts out into each track. As I say, each track, all the kind of intros and your verses and choruses and everything pretty much always maintain a melody to them, and a lead, which really helps all this kind of like emotion which is driven throughout the album. This is melodic metal, and that is what works properly. There's another band I'm listening to that label themselves as melodic metal, but all their intros and verses and choruses is all like bass heavy power chord, and that is all it is. And then the solos are just near enough pure shred. So you kind of think, where is the melodic aspect and element? This band has the emotion on point to an extent. As I said, they do kind of miss it with, as I said, the use of the bass. Going into the solos that this band produced, they're a bit kind of all over the place. I do respect them for what they do, because the band do try their best to do a melodic solo and use emotion
Incoming Tide, the solo is slow. It's not just going for speed or technical prowess. It's trying to go for something you can feel, that you can kind of relate to emotionally. The only issue is some of the songs are a bit too short, or it's not a lot going on. It's not one of these melodic solos that really lift you up and you just kind of get lost in the environment that they put out. Just some emotional solos that have melody, you just get lost in it, like you escape reality and you get sucked into this world that the guitar kind of creates through its sound and emotions. You are just completely enveloped in it. The solos don't usually work like this through the album. They go for melody, but it's not something you really kind of get lost into. It's like you can appreciate the warmth to it and it sounds nice and pleasing, but it's not something you'll really be pulled into at all. Some solos are relatively short, and then some solos are a little basic, where they kind of repeat a certain phrase a bit too much, therefore it's not got a lot of variety going on with it, which gets a bit unfortunate. Then you've got solos which really kind of open up in certain aspects, especially near the end of the album. So A Stranger's Divide, Saviors, the solos in these songs, they're longer and they have variety, so they have an energy to them, and then they have melody. They also have technical prowess, so there's a lot of variety going on. It takes you through the emotions. It's really very heavily driving, and the solos therefore work. So I wouldn't call them bad. I would say that the guitarists who are going for a very hard thing, which is to basically give you a solo that you can get lost in and emotionally connect, which is a lot harder than just I'm just going to do speed. So it's a hard thing to achieve, and the band do it at times and then other times flat, but I know that they are capable, and this is only their third album, so I know that going forward from this, I probably can expect more from these guys, and I think that they can. I know that they can be capable of doing better solos. You just need to lengthen them out. Some of the solos seem a bit like shy in a way, where it's short and it's like they don't really want to go too far into it. It's like, go for it. That is what I take from this. And as I say, there are some really good solos on this, as I say, especially near the end. So we've got some positives and some negatives. As I say, the vocalist is a really good positive. He is very, very good. The guitarists are a bit of a mix between negative and positive, more leaning towards positive. They do leads. They have solos which half of the time it's like, oh, I think it fell a bit flat there, but I know what they were going for, and what they were going for is good. And then sometimes it's like, that was pretty good, and other times that was actually a really good solo there. And as I say, they got melody throughout all the songs, which is the way it should be. You shouldn't really have solos which just go pure for speed. There is like a certain one-off track. As I say, there is like something like 13, did I say, or 12 tracks on this album. It's an hour 17 minutes, and I think there's like just one song where it's more focused on the speed element. But that's okay. It gives a new kind of energy and diversity and separates itself from the mist of the other solos in the album. Let's go into another negative here. Because of the overuse of bass and a certain kind of tone that they're going for, which is kind of melody and a kind of sadness, I think lyrically this album's context is quite sad and depressing. And the sound does have that. Because of the tone, also as I said at one point previously, everything is kind of in the mid-tempo range. Some of these songs can get fairly repetitive, and I know that to be a thing, as I showed this to a friend and he just listened through once and got around to track 5 and said, so far all the songs I've liked, but they all do sound relatively similar.
And of course, this is an issue, and I am a critic, therefore I have to point out these things. The tone is very consistent, the tempo is also very consistent. Therefore, all the songs do have a very samey kind of feel to it. That's not to say that the album is just A to B and there is no in between. There is just nothing else to it. That's not true. They do try certain things that will kind of break things up a little bit. So there's bridge sections in songs where it goes incredibly soft and it may be purely piano based or just clean based, which is different from other songs where the bridge section never really does that. And then there's the track Nothing Hurts, which is the first very symphonically driven track, which gives it a lot more power from all the other tracks, which has just been this mid-tempo melody stuff. And then track 5, as I say, it goes for this symphonic higher energy sound with some orchestrational instruments and everything. It really gives some lift and some much needed diversity from the album. Not to say that track 5 is the first thing to do anything different, that, as I said, the tracks before had them bridges that I was on about, where it does use melody and something a little different. This Avalanche is the third track and probably my most disappointing, because that's a track that kind of lacks a solo. I don't know if there is a solo in there, but if it is, it's something like 3 seconds, so I don't think there really is one, which I have a huge problem with, because I love guitar solos. So I just feel the song kind of misses it, because it's the thing I always kind of anticipate and I'm looking forward to in a track. Just what the solo is going to say within the confines of this track. What is this solo going to go for in the realms of what this track represents, what the track is going for, the sound and the tone of it. I want to see what the guitarist does with it. So I found that a rather disappointing thing, but obviously that does separate from the other tracks because it's the one that doesn't have the solo. And then Tears for the Fall, I think, is got that bridge I was on about, which is very, very clean, maybe piano driven. And then, as I say, Nothing Hurts is very symphonically driven. The bridge section is very powerful. I really like because the vocalist goes into a bit of a higher kind of key, there's a bit more kind of energy and push to it. Calling You Home is the first kind of melody and everything, so where things do shift gears, where the band uses melody, so it's the first time you hear it in that kind of realm. The guitarist, as I kind of previously stated, goes for something which I really like, which is a blues influence. You get these little tidbits sprinkled through the song, just these little moments in time through the song. They just give a little bit of a lead lick, and it's definitely a blues-inspired thing. That's what blues does. But unfortunately, some of these little little tidbits, as I said, it's quite shy, which is really disheartening. Like, it'll come in and it's like a single note, and it sounds like it gets cut off or everything. Like, it comes in, but then it gets too panicked, and it's like it runs out of there. You just get it out as fast as it can. I find that really disappointing. It's not this beautiful pulse that lingers over the song. It's just in and out. It darts so fast. It's like, I don't really think it really got to any point here. I don't know what any of it was going for. I'm not getting the story, the reason for this. So some of it is quite disappointing. There are other parts where it does actually work, and then the notes actually do linger, and you get more than just a singular one. And when that happens, it's really, really good. It gives this slow melodic song just that little bit of like life to it, just to kind of keep the energy going, so it's not just an overuse of the slower melody. So I really enjoyed the track for the use of the blues influence. Then you got Call to Victory, Echoes for Eternity, doing the usual kind of melodic mid-tempo kind of thing, but having its individual tidbits here and there. The Unspoken Truth, track 9, is a real standout for me, because I believe that the piano that is in other tracks, but especially in this track, Unspoken Truth, track 9, I believe it is played by the vocalist. I could be wrong, but I think he's the one who does the piano work. And if it is, it makes this track really likeable to me, because I find it very personal then. So the Unspoken Truth, as you probably can imagine, is mostly piano throughout the whole song. It's a long song as well, with it being mostly the piano. It's 5 minutes odd something. So it's just the piano and just the vocalist. And the reason why I really like this is, one, it's again a change of pace. Two, it's a grand piano, and the piano I think is one of the most soulful instruments you could ever get. I'm a guitar elitist, but I don't think a guitar can do anything as beautiful as a piano can. I don't think it's possible. The piano will always be able to capture the emotion and heart better than a guitar is capable of. So I like the emotion, I kind of like the diversity from the previous track. And with it being the vocalist, and it just being this big section of just the vocalist singing, and there's nothing else. It's him singing something probably quite personal to him, and it's him playing the piano, just him. It is very personal, and that's what I really like. This is the vocalist completely. There's nothing else. It is all from him. All the emotion, everything is him. It's very personal. I really like it. Another good thing about this track is when it comes to the solo, it's not exactly a guitar solo. It seems that the solo is the piano. And I really like this, because it just shows another kind of beauty and lead work from a whole new instrument. I like instruments, I like to see the talent that it brings, obviously kind of in the metal realm, because that's the kind of music that I enjoy really. So I like hearing how good the vocalist is, again if he is the one who plays the piano, which I think he is, do the lead solo. It really changes sorry about that noise, someone sent me a text. It really changes, because the whole album, it's all guitar solos. This is the one track where it's the piano, and it's the only one. And most metal albums, it's always guitar solo or key solo, but for a piano, that's quite unheard of in metal, so it makes a welcome change, and it's nice to get something where it's like, I'm not hearing the guitarist do a lead and always do it. This is the lead singer doing a piano lead solo, and I can hear how good he is. And it's a very good solo. I would have liked more through the album, because it's just so nice to get something new and different. And then when it goes kind of into the end of the song, the guitar comes in, and it's just these really beautiful kind of held notes and everything, because the vocalist there sings, and it just has such lift to it, and it's really good. The track immediately after that is again another good one, As Strangers Divide. This has like synth to it, so this again really changes, and the synth gives it a lot of energy, and it runs through the majority of the track. So everything being this mid-tempo, pretty bass-driven, melodic, this song has the energy with all the synths. It's diverse, it's different, it really stands out. The energy is higher. The solo is very, very good. So this track really, really sticks out. I think the synth really does give this lift. And again, the solo is really good. Saviors starts soft, then it builds up into something more heavy, and then it changes into something else. Then you get the chorus. So this song is quite progressive and has multi-layers to it, which makes this track really, really good because there's a lot more going on. There's a lot more kind of structure to how the song's laid out compared to the previous tracks. And also the solo, it builds to it, and then when the solo kind of kicks in, there's some really good notes in this solo. Again, would have liked it a little bit longer. That's usually the case with me all the time. I can never have enough of a guitar solo. So that track is really good. And then you got Empire, which is the longest track on the album. Therefore, you can clearly imagine that there is a lot of progressive elements just throughout this track. There's a lot of shifting tempos and tones and gears and everything. And there is a few lead aspects throughout. There's like 3 or so solos that through this track. Not overly long, they're quite short individual pieces. It does obviously just help just keep the kind of life and energy going through the song. There is a bit of Bruce Dickinson kind of vocal melody work going on. They're both very different vocalists. As I said, this vocalist is very, very warm, as for Bruce is a very powerful and high-voiced singer. This voice, there's more roundness to it. It's not as high, it's lower, it's warmer, it's a bit thicker, this guy's voice, than Bruce's. But he does kind of sing in a similar kind of pattern as what Bruce kind of does in certain aspects of the song. At least that's what I got from this, so could be wrong, but I got a bit of that in this track. And so that is kind of the album. I've skipped the odd tidbit, but I've gone over pros, I've gone over cons, and I've gone through individual tracks to just point out some real nice tidbits here and there. So overall, what do I really think of this album? I think it is a very good album. I get a great deal of enjoyment out of it. I really enjoy that the band focus on melody instead of doing the typical metal thing of just use power and use chords and just use shred. It's very repetitious. It's kind of boring. It's hard to really connect to something that is kind of like emotionally hollow like that. So I really appreciate what this band goes for, and the fact that the piano is sprinkled throughout, and it is actually played by one of the members, who I think is the vocalist, in one track which was very, very personal, and I was given a piano solo which I thought was very, very nice and tasteful. And there's some really good standout tracks. There's one which I think is overly weak, which is this Avalanche, just because the solo, there's nothing, which I found very disappointing. It's quite repetitious, but each track does do these little tidbits of alterations to keep everything a little fresh at least, so that really does help. And as I say, the album is just kind of a pleasure to kind of listen through because of the melody and the great vocal work, and the fact that nothing is a bass heavy chord. There is a lot of lead work going on that uses melody, as I said. So it's very good. I don't think I can really go as far as to call it a great album, just because there is that bit of repetition. The tone is very consistent through the whole album. The solos kind of fall and then really work at times. So I think there may be a bit too many issues for me to give it the title of great. So I would probably say, because I do actually really enjoy the album, give it a 7.9. So it's very good with a lot of really great aspects to it. One of the blues aspects as well, which I forgot to mention, is a great thing for them to use. And so yeah, it's very good, which is the 7.5, but I give it 7.9 because it has so many great aspects, but 8 is great, and I think it just falls flat at that. So that is my review of the album. Not as long as my usual, still quite long, so I'm going to leave it here. I'll see you guys in the next video.